If you take a look on page 3 of your syllabus, you're going to see that I introduce you there to a very important technique called CTEC. CTEC stands for claims, terms, examples, and quotes. And when we read nonfiction texts, not literature, but nonfiction texts, we are going to rely on CTEC to help us understand what we're reading better and to help us retrieve material from what we read more efficiently when we participate in class discussions, take quizzes, write papers, go back to review and reflect later. CTEC is an indexing-based annotation technique. In other words, you're not writing words and sentences that take a long time to do all over your paper. Instead, you're highlighting and underlining, you're boxing and circling, and you're putting little one-letter codes in the margin of your paper like an index so you can go back and quickly, easily see and find things later. Let's talk about the details of the indexing system. Each letter in the system represents a technique you want to use. C stands for claims. When we read, we want to look for the arguments that writers are making that require support and further explanation. We call those claims, and we want to underline or highlight those as we read. Once we've underlined or highlighted a claim, we write a letter C in the margin next to that claim. The second letter in CTEC is T for terms. By terms, we mean concepts that require definition, things like vocabulary, words you don't recognize or words you think are important, cultural or academic references to books, theories, ideas, texts, etc. Think of terms as an invitation for further exploration. Terms are things that you can look up on the web and learn more about. That's one really good way to think about terms. And when you find a term, you're just going to circle or box it the first time you see it. It's really important that you not get into a process where you are trying to circle or box things every time you see it. You only do it the first time you see it so that you can go back and find it easily later. The third letter in CTEC is E. It stands for examples. Examples are stories, studies, cases, people, situations presented in the text to explain and support the ideas of the writer. When you find an example, again, you're going to circle it the first time you see it and put an E in the margin. So the key with T and E of CTEC, terms and examples, is to circle or box it the first time you see it so that you can find where the discussion of that term example begins when you go back later to review. And then finally, the last letter in CTEC, Q, stands for quotes. And what we mean by quotes are passages that interest you while you're reading, passages you might be able to use in a paper, a discussion, or a quiz, passages you might want to ask questions about or further explore, further investigate. When you find a passage like this, you want to underline it or highlight it. The key to thinking about quotes, cues in CTEC is to think about why you're reading a text. If you're taking a class, what is the class looking for you to focus on and study? If you're exploring something on your own for your own interest or as a professional, what are you trying to achieve by reading this? That will guide you on what are the really important quotes and passages. A key reminder when it comes to cue in the CTEC method is that you want to limit yourself to about 10% of the text. If you're underlining more than 10% of the text, to use your highlights or underlines later, you're going to have to reread the text. And that's what you're trying to avoid through CTEC. CTEC is designed to help you be efficient. And so if you highlight so much stuff, you have to go back and read everything, you're not being efficient. So a few final thoughts about CTEC. I have presented each letter in the method and explained what they are, but you don't want to worry about whether you're getting it right. Is this really a claim that I'm calling a C and underlining? Is this really a T that I'm circling or boxing? Or might it be an E? Is this really a Q, or should I think of it as a C? Those kind of arguments, they don't really matter. It doesn't matter whether you correctly identify something as a C or a Q. What matters is you find important passages and underline them. It doesn't matter whether you correctly identify something as a term or an example. What matters is that you're looking for keywords, people, events, and concepts and circling and boxing them. In other words, it's the active reading, it's the active looking that matters, not whether you're correctly using the letters and terms. The point here is that you're marking things you can go back and look at later, and you're challenging your brain to think actively while you read. That's why CTEC is such a valuable and important method, and we're going to use it over and over again in this class.